Hey guys, welcome to yet another recent viewing video. I've been on a roll with movies here lately, and this time I'm talking about a movie called Gone Girl that I watched last night, and I very deliberately chose not to do this last night right after I watched the movie because, well, this movie really, I don't know, it made me stop and think. I can't necessarily sit here and tell you what it made me think about, but it just made me kind of sit back and ponder things for a while. I don't know, I thought it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it all around. It doesn't necessarily have a satisfyingly happy ending to it or anything, but still it has I don't know, it was a really powerful, thought-provoking movie. I'm not familiar with the book. I haven't read it. I'm not sure if I would read it now that I've seen the movie, especially since I've heard a lot of people that claim this book was pretty faithful, or this movie was pretty faithful to the book. But anyway, Gone Girl is a story about a supposedly happy married couple who beneath the surface are pretty much anything but. And one day, the husband, played by Ben Affleck, comes home, and because a neighbor calls and says that something was up, and he comes home to find that his wife is missing. And like a lot of stories in the last 5 or 10 years in this country, we've seen a lot of these wives that have disappeared, and husbands are, obviously are going to be a suspect, and bodies are never found or anything like that. It kind of starts off like that. But I had to admit, this will probably be spoilers, so if you don't want spoiled, then I wouldn't listen any further. But I was thrown for a loop when, like, halfway-ish through the movie, all of a sudden they show the wife is alive. She's not dead. She wasn't killed by her husband. She wasn't kidnapped by somebody. She actually staged it and tried to pin the whole thing on her husband. And she had her reasons for doing so. Maybe one of my little issues with the movie, when they show these flashbacks to how the two of them met and all that, it was like so wonderful and romantic, and they seemed like they were just totally in love with one another, and things seemed to be really, really good. And then all of a sudden it just seemed like it spirals out of control because his mom was terminally ill, and they moved from I think New York to Missouri, which is funny because it seems like the story roughly takes place in the same neck of the woods that I live in. And that's when all of a sudden she started to feel, well, I'm saying this as though I believe that this is really what was happening with her, but she had written this journal that was to be left behind for the police to find, and so it may have just been a setup to make her look like she was a certain way. But she seemed to be, if we're to believe this, she seemed to have been she felt like baggage at that point. She was no longer in her element. She was where his family and stuff were from. She felt like an accessory or something like that, and no longer, the loving wife that he adores. Which, like I said, it seemed kind of strange to me, but it would seem like there was such a turn there, and it wasn't really ever explained. And of course, his actions always seemed to be pretty. They looked bad on him, and I'm starting to have this major problem now with watching movies and not just saying, okay, don't worry about this and that. Just watch the movie and absorb it. But to me, I'm thinking to myself, why would a guy ever do some of the things that he did and act some of the ways that he did in that kind of a situation? Because it would be so obvious. It would so look bad on your part for you to do some of this stuff. And sometimes he realized he had made mistakes, and like some lady, I never would have allowed this to happen to myself. he allows himself for a brief moment to take a freaking picture with some lady and smiles and everything. And he's like, "Oh wait, please delete that." And she's like, "No." I was like, that was when I think that might have been when I realized that the movie was not only a psychological thriller, but also it was loaded with social commentary about the media and technology and the disconnect that a lot of us seem to have with even our loved ones, and the dichotomy of relationships and men and women and marriage, and how it changes people after you get married, and when things happen in marriages, the typical arguments over money, and you made a decision without consulting me first, and all this kind of stuff. And I realized that they were poking fun at a lot of stuff like that in this movie. And I think it's even, well, Wikipedia is just called psychological thriller, but I believe it also had some underlying dark comedy to it. Black comedy, black humor, dark humor, whatever the terminology would be for it. Because at times it was just a little ridiculous without being like, Three Stooges ridiculous. But I don't know. It was a really good movie, though. I really enjoyed it. But it made me feel a little sick inside when it was all said and done. When the way that the movie ended, I won't even get into that part. But the reveal halfway through it that she wasn't actually kidnapped and that she wasn't actually or actually dead was a shocker. But the ending was kind of a shock too. And it was a movie where you went into it and you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm probably going to hate this guy. And by the end of the movie, your disdain has turned towards the wife. So that probably gives away quite a bit. But anyway, I don't know what else to say. I really enjoyed it, though. It was directed by David Fincher, who was the director of The Social Network, which is another movie that I really enjoy. And just for the hell of it, I'm just looking to see what other movies this guy has done. Oh, well, this is the guy that did Fight Club. I'm not a fan of that one. Panic Room, that was a pretty good movie. Seven was an amazing movie. Benjamin Button was a good movie. Social Network. Oh, he did the new girl with the dragon tattoo. I'm not so sure I could, I'll ever sit down and watch that. I'm not a big fan of the U.S. Hollywood version of that. I really enjoyed the Swedish version or whatever of the first movie. I've always wanted to get and watch the entire trilogy of that. Well, anyway, that's neither here nor there. Gone Girl starred Ben Affleck, Rosamund Pike, Neil Patrick Harris, Tyler Perry, Carrie Coon. Everybody I thought did a really good job in it. Rosamund Pike, I find her to be very, very bizarre at times. Sometimes she's in something and I feel she's very off-putting to me. I liked her in the Jack Reacher movie. I think I've seen some other stuff though where she kind of she just oozed something like she did in this movie that was very off-putting. Neil Patrick Harris was a very interesting role in this, playing kind of a creepy stalker type of guy. Tyler Perry was really good as this power lawyer. Carrie Coon played the role of Ben Affleck's sister. Yeah. That picture of her on this does not look anything like her in this movie. Well, anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. Gone Girl, it was really, really cool. I would definitely recommend. I definitely want to get it in my collection. It was something else. So, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.